I tore the wedding contract in half while standing inside a hotel elevator. The paper slipped from my hands and scattered across the marble floor, just as the doors opened onto the 23rd floor of the Grand Crescent Hotel. Around me, employees hurried through the hallway carrying flowers, champagne glasses, and expensive decorations for what newspapers were already calling the wedding of the year. Nobody noticed the panic on my face because everyone inside that building was too busy preparing for beauty. My name is Selena Hart. I am 31 years old, and for the past 7 years, I have planned luxury weddings for wealthy families across Chicago. People often imagine my life is glamorous because I spend my days surrounded by designer dresses, crystal chandeliers, and million-dollar celebrations. The truth is less romantic. Weddings reveal uncomfortable truths about people when power, money, and expectations become involved. After years in this business, I learned that healthy relationships are usually quiet and ordinary. While dangerous relationships often look perfect from the outside, that wedding belonged to Damian Vale. Everyone in Chicago knew his name. He was one of the youngest technology investors in the city, famous for magazine interviews, charity events, and political connections. People admired him because he looked disciplined, intelligent, and successful in every public appearance. Before meeting him personally, I understood why, 3 weeks earlier, Damian's assistant hired my company to organize the ceremony. From the beginning, something about the job felt unusual. Damian controlled every detail himself, from flower arrangements to security placement, while his fiancée Elena Royce rarely attended meetings. Whenever I asked for her opinion, Damian answered instead, always politely, always at first. Convinced myself it was normal. Wealthy clients often liked control because successful people became used to managing every situation around them. Still, experience sharpens instinct over time. Small details reveal more than dramatic actions sometimes do. A delayed answer, nervous glance, or forced smile can expose emotions people desperately try to hide. Understanding emotional behavior is important in communication because fear rarely introduces itself openly. That afternoon, I entered the ballroom carrying final seating plans while workers adjusted crystal lights above the dance floor. Damian stood near the stage speaking with hotel security. His posture looked relaxed, but his attention constantly moved across the room as though he expected problems before they happened. When he noticed me approaching, his expression softened immediately. "Please tell me you solved my mother's seating disaster," he said with a tired smile. I handed him the updated chart. "Your mother now sits far away from your aunt, your business partner, and your ex-girlfriend. I believe world peace has officially been achieved." Damian laughed naturally, and for a moment he seemed genuinely charming rather than intimidating. "That is exactly why I hired you," he replied. Oddly, that moment unsettled me more than his controlling behavior had. Kindness mixed with authority creates confusion because it becomes difficult to separate care from manipulation. Some people understand exactly when to appear gentle, and that balance makes emotional control harder to recognize. Damian studied the chart before looking back at me carefully. "You notice everything, don't you? It is part of my job. That must make relationships difficult." His tone sounded playful, but the observation felt unusually personal. Before I could respond, Elena entered the ballroom through the side doors. The atmosphere around Damian changed instantly. He crossed the room toward her without hesitation and kissed her forehead gently. From a distance, they looked like the perfect couple from a magazine advertisement. Elena wore a simple black coat with her hair pulled back loosely, and she carried herself with quiet elegance. Yet there was exhaustion behind her eyes that makeup could not hide. "You should be resting," Damian told her softly. His voice sounded caring and protective, but Elena's shoulders tightened the moment he touched her. It was a tiny reaction that most people would never notice. The human body often reacts honestly before words do. Especially when someone feels emotionally unsafe, Elena forced herself to smile toward me. "I wanted to approve the flowers myself," she explained quietly. Damian brushed his hand against her back. "You see why I am marrying her? She worries about flowers than her own health." Several employees nearby laughed politely. Elena did not. Later that evening, after most of the staff had left, I found Elena standing alone on the outdoor terrace, overlooking the river. Rain clouds covered the skyline while cold wind moved through the empty tables behind her. The city lights reflected across the dark water below us. "You finally escaped him for 5 minutes," I said lightly. Elena looked startled before giving a weak laugh. "That obvious?" "Only to someone who spends her life watching couples." For several moments, she stayed silent while staring toward the river. Then she asked quietly, "Do you ever meet people and immediately feel something is wrong?" The question felt too serious for casual conversation. "Yes," I answered honestly. "And are you usually correct?" "Most of the time." Elena lowered her eyes slowly. "I wish I trusted my instincts sooner." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Until then, I had suspected emotional pressure, maybe controlling behavior, maybe fear before marriage. But now something darker seemed hidden beneath her words. "Elena," I asked carefully, "are you trying to tell me something?" Before she could answer, the terrace doors opened behind us. Damian stepped outside, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. His smile appeared relaxed, but his eyes moved immediately between Elena and me, as though measuring the atmosphere. "There you are," he said warmly. "I thought you disappeared." The sentence sounded harmless, yet Elena's face lost color instantly. Damian noticed me watching her reaction, and for the briefest moment his smile faded before returning again. "I hope my fiancé is not causing trouble," he added smoothly. "Not at all," I replied. He handed Elena a glass before turning towards the skyline. "Beautiful view tonight." Nobody answered. The silence between us felt uncomfortable in a way I could not fully explain. Then Damian's phone rang. He checked the screen and sighed softly before stepping back toward the hotel doors. "Business call," he said. "I will only be a minute." The moment he disappeared inside, Elena grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt. Her calm expression vanished completely. "If something happens to me," she whispered quickly, "do not trust anything Damian says." I stared at her in shock. "Elena, what are you talking about?" She reached into her coat pocket and pressed a silver key into my hand. "Locker 214, Union Station." Fear filled her eyes now, real and unmistakable. "You need to go to the police," I said immediately. "No." She shook her head quickly. "You do not understand who he knows." The terrace doors opened again before I could respond further. Damian returned with the same calm smile as before, but Elena released my wrist so quickly that it almost felt painful. And in that moment, I realized 2 things with complete certainty. Elena Royce was terrified of the man she was about to marry, and Damian Vale already suspected she had told me something. Before I share the rest of story, I need to know, where are you listening from? I would love to hear from you. I did not sleep after leaving the hotel that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Elena's face on the terrace, and the fear that appeared whenever Damian entered the room. I had spent years around difficult couples, but this felt different. Most unhappy brides showed doubt, frustration, or sadness. Elena showed fear so deep that even simple movements around Damian seemed carefully controlled. By 6 in the morning, I gave up trying to rest and drove back to my office downtown. Rain covered the streets, turning the city gray and reflective beneath the early traffic lights. Chicago usually felt energetic before sunrise, but that morning everything looked distant and strangely quiet. The moment I unlocked my office door, I realized someone had been inside. Nothing obvious was destroyed. The computers remained untouched, and no drawers were broken open. However, small details immediately felt wrong. The folders on my desk had been moved slightly out of order, and Elena's wedding file sat open near the edge of the table as if someone wanted me to notice it. People often underestimate how much information small disturbances can communicate. Human beings naturally memorize patterns without realizing it, especially in familiar spaces. That is why even tiny changes sometimes create instant discomfort before the mind fully understands why. Carefully, I stepped farther into the office. One photograph was missing from Elena's file. The engagement portrait. It had shown Damian and Elena standing beside the river outside the hotel during their official magazine interview last month. In its place rested a folded note. I opened it slowly. "You are asking dangerous questions." No signature, no threat beyond the sentence itself. For reasons I could not explain, that calm wording frightened me more than direct violence would have. At exactly 9 o'clock, every television channel interrupted regular programming. Selena Royce missing before luxury wedding. The headline spread across the city within minutes. Reporters crowded the sidewalks outside Damian's penthouse, while social media filled with theories and speculation. Some people believed Elena had escaped wedding pressure. Others insisted Damian must be involved. Then Damian appeared publicly for the first time. I watched the interview from the television, mounted inside my office waiting area. He looked exhausted but controlled, dressed in a dark coat while cameras surrounded him outside his building.
"We are deeply worried about Elena,"
he told reporters calmly. "She has been emotionally overwhelmed for some time, and right now our only concern is her safety and privacy." I felt immediate anger listening to him. He never sounded frightened for her. He sounded prepared. Careful listeners often more from emotional tone than vocabulary itself. Damian chose his words intelligently. Overwhelmed. Emotional. Privacy. He was already shaping public perception before anyone had evidence strong enough to challenge him. My assistant Ivy entered carrying coffee before stopping in front of the television. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He is making her sound unstable already." "Because he knows exactly what he is doing," I replied quietly. I looked down at the silver key still resting in my hand. Locker 214, Union Station. By afternoon, I was walking through the crowded train station trying not to feel watched. Travelers rushed past carrying luggage, while announcements echoed across the high ceilings overhead. The constant movement around me should have felt comforting, yet anxiety changes the way people experience ordinary environments. Once fear enters the mind, crowded places stop feeling safe because every stranger suddenly feels unpredictable. Locker 214 stood near the back corridor beside a closed coffee stand. I hesitated for several seconds before inserting the key. Inside sat a brown envelope, a flash drive, and a velvet jewelry box. The box contained an engagement ring. Not Elena's ring. This one looked older and slightly worn along the inside band. A strange feeling settled in my chest as I opened the envelope. The first photograph nearly stopped my breathing. Damian stood beside another woman wearing the exact same ring. She had blonde hair, bright eyes, and a confident smile that looked painfully alive compared to Elena's nervous expressions. Written across the back of the photograph were 4 simple words. Name was Clara. I searched through the remaining papers quickly. Newspaper articles, police reports, old photographs. 3 years earlier, Damian Vale had been engaged to a woman named Clara Bennett. 2 weeks before their wedding, Clara disappeared without explanation. Police eventually concluded that she left the country voluntarily after suffering emotional instability connected to wedding pressure. The pattern felt impossible to ignore. Same story, same language, same carefully managed explanation. A cold realization moved through me slowly. Elena had not imagined the danger around her. She had discovered something connected to Clara, and now she was gone too. Back at my apartment later that evening, I locked every door before inserting the flash drive into my laptop. Only one video file appeared on the screen. When I pressed play, Elena appeared sitting inside what looked like a hotel room. Her makeup was gone, and dark circles rested beneath her eyes as though she had not slept properly in weeks. "If you are watching this," she said quietly, "I probably disappeared already." Even through the screen, her fear felt real. "I made a mistake," she continued. "I thought I could leave Dame safely if I gathered proof first." My hands tightened around the edge of the laptop. 3 months ago, I discovered financial records connected to Clara Bennett after she vanished. Damian paid investigators, lawyers, and private security companies to erase information about her disappearance. Elena glanced nervously toward the hotel door before speaking again. "I do not think Damian killed Clara," she whispered. "I think something worse happened. I think he cannot accept being abandoned." The video froze briefly before continuing, "And now he knows I have been searching." At that exact moment, every light inside my apartment went dark. Darkness covered the apartment so completely that for several seconds I could not even see the outline of my own furniture. The only light came from the laptop screen, where Elena's frozen face remained paused in the middle of her sentence. Then I heard movement behind me. Not loud movement, just the soft sound of someone stepping carefully across the kitchen floor. Every muscle in my body tightened immediately. Fear affects time in strange ways, because the mind begins noticing details that normally disappear into the background. I could hear rain tapping softly against the windows, the distant sound of traffic outside, and my own breathing becoming slower as instinct forced me to stay calm. A male voice finally spoke from the darkness. "You should have stopped searching after the first warning." The voice sounded controlled and educated. There was no anger in it, which somehow made the situation more frightening. I turned slowly toward the kitchen area, but the apartment remained too dark to see clearly. "Who are you?" I asked. The man ignored my question. Damian Vale is a respected man. Powerful people attract rumors, especially when emotional women become involved. The wording immediately unsettled me because it sounded rehearsed, almost professional. Men who protect dangerous people often learn how to hide threats inside calm language. They speak politely because polite intimidation leaves fewer consequences. I reached carefully for my phone beside the laptop and switched on the flashlight. The kitchen was empty. However, the back door stood slightly open, allowing cold night air to move through the apartment. I rushed toward the hallway outside, but by the time I reached the stairs, nobody remained in the building. Only silence. After locking the apartment again, I sat awake until morning, trying to understand what Elena had uncovered before disappearing. The financial records alone were disturbing, but the emotional pattern around Damian frightened me more. He did not seem motivated by rage or revenge. Everything about his behavior suggested obsession and control instead. The next afternoon, I returned to the Grand Crescent Hotel, hoping to speak privately with someone from Damian's staff. The unfinished ballroom remained almost identical to the night Elena vanished. White flowers covered every table, while soft gold lights reflected across the empty dance floor. The beauty of the room now felt unsettling, like a performance continuing after the audience disappeared. While walking through the hallway near the security offices, I noticed a name printed beside one temporary staff locker: Nathan Bennett. The surname stopped me immediately. Inside the envelope Elena left behind, Clara Bennett's name appeared repeatedly across the police reports. I stood there for several seconds before a man's voice behind me said quietly, "You should not be here." I turned and found a tall man in his mid-30s watching me carefully. He wore hotel security clothing, but exhaustion covered his face in a way that looked much older than his actual age. "You are Nathan Bennett," I said slowly. His expression changed instantly. "Who told you that name?" I stepped closer carefully. "Clara Bennett was your sister." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Nathan looked down the hallway nervously before leading me into an empty conference room beside the ballroom. "You need to stop investigating Damian," he said quietly after closing the door. "People around him monitor everything." "Elena trusted me for a reason," I replied. "I need to know what happened." Nathan sat heavily into one of the chairs and rubbed his hands across his face before answering. "Clara disappeared 3 years ago because she tried leaving him publicly. Damian never accepted it. He hired investigators to follow her, lawyers to pressure her financially, and private security teams to track anyone helping her."
I stared at him in disbelief.
"Police never found evidence because Damian buried everything before it reached court." Nathan's voice carried years of frustration and exhaustion. It became painfully clear that he had been fighting this situation alone for a long time. "Is Clara alive?" I asked carefully. Nathan nodded slowly. Relief moved through me instantly, but it disappeared just as quickly when he continued speaking. "She changed her identity and left the country because she believed Damian would never stop searching for her. Elena discovered the truth months ago, and we were trying to help her leave safely too." My stomach tightened. "Then where is Elena now?" Nathan looked toward the conference room door with visible anxiety. "She never reached the safe apartment we arranged for her." The room became silent. Then footsteps echoed outside the hallway, slow, calm, unhurried. Nathan's face lost color before the conference room door opened. Damian entered wearing the same composed expression he showed reporters and business partners. Looking at him, nobody would imagine how much fear surrounded his name privately. "I expected Elena to contact you eventually," he said while looking directly at me. "What disappoints me is Nathan becoming involved again after everything I did to protect his sister." Nathan stood immediately. "You destroyed Clara's life." Damian sighed quietly, almost like a tired man listening to an unreasonable complaint. "Clara destroyed her own life," he replied. "I simply protected myself from the consequences." There was something deeply disturbing about the honesty in his voice. Damian truly believed control and love belonged together. In his mind, abandonment was betrayal, and betrayal justified everything afterward. I forced myself to stay calm. "Where is Elena?" Damian studied me carefully before answering. "She became frightened and ran away before we could solve things privately." "You mean before she could expose you?" For the first time that evening, irritation appeared beneath his calm expression. Elena allowed weak people to fill her head with paranoia. Nathan stepped forward angrily, but I stopped him before the situation escalated further. Then my phone vibrated inside my coat pocket. "Unknown number," I answered immediately. For several seconds, all I could hear was breathing. Then Elena whispered softly, "Do not let him find me." Relief hit me so strongly that my knees almost weakened. "Elena, are you safe?" "I think so," she answered quietly. "But he has people searching everywhere." Damian's entire posture changed the moment he heard her voice through the phone. For the first time since meeting him, he looked genuinely afraid, and suddenly I understood the truth that Elena and Clara had discovered long before me. Damian Vale was not dangerous because he hated women. He was dangerous because he could not survive losing control of them. If this story kept you listening until the end, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional English stories. And tell me in the comments, would you have trusted Damian at the beginning of the story?